Hello everyone, Bridget Casey here, and I'm so excited for the Altenew Picket Fence Studio Stampwheel video hop. Here's a sneak peek at the project we are going to create today. We are going to get started, of course, with our stamp wheel, and we will use some phenomenal products from Picket Fence Studios. I have the People Are My Favorite Mummy stamp set and the coordinating die set as well, which is just, it's so super cute. We also are going to use the Mini Haunted Moon blending stencil set, and I have a 2-inch circle die to cut that out, and the Bat Crazy 6x8 stencil. We're also going to use paper glitz in Black Rainbow, artist markers in Rock Collection. We'll use pure graphite crisp dye ink, obsidian pigment ink, and lemonade stand, cherry sweet, and tangerine dream. I'm getting started with an A2 panel in the corner of my stamp wheel. I have my stamp that I'm treating with my stamp conditioning eraser before I put the ink on the back of it. I'm using pure graphite crisp dye ink to flip my plate and stamp my image down. We will now begin coloring with the artist markers. I'm not going to use the pure graphite artist marker. I'm going to begin with Industrial Diamond as my darkest color. As you can see, I'm adding it very sparingly as I go along my mummy, and I'm picking and choosing areas that I think would be darkest on the mummy for coloring. Now I'll come in with my next darkest shade, which is Silverstone, and I'll pull those lines out for where I put the darker tone of the Industrial Diamond, and I'll also begin to add some darker lines with the Silverstone as well. I'm adding those along kind of the side of the mummy, on the top of his arms, on the left side of his body, kind of reflecting back because the moon's going to be up in that corner. And I'm also adding a few more touches of that before I go away. Now I'm bringing in limestone, and I'm adding it over the entire surface of the mummy pretty much. I did leave a few tiny little white sections there on the mummy. I want to be able to make it look like his bandages are moving, and he has movement and depth and dimension just by using my artist markers. So I do want to leave some areas light and some areas darker. So now I'm going back to Silverstone, and I'm going over some of those areas that may have gotten a little too light for my tastes. And again, I'm doing the same thing with the Industrial Diamond. I'm adding in a bit more of that darkness that I had because the limestone marker has a lot of the solution in it and less pigment, so it will pull out more of the color. Now this is where the magic occurs. I am restamping this with the obsidian pigment ink, and I am getting that really dark, crisp line, and that is making the coloring just pop because the darkness of that line against the gray coloring on my mummy, it just looks fantastic. And I love having those beautiful crisp lines of the image. So as you can see, I'm finishing heat setting that. I did heat set with crystal clear embossing powder, and I missed just his toe, so I was fixing his toe there. So we got that all set, and it's amazing how that black line really makes that gray pop, but it really, really does. So now I've chosen the sentiment, and I'm going to go ahead and I am going to heat set this as well. I just forgot to do it in the last step. So we'll do the crystal clear heat embossing powder, and then I will heat set it with my heat tool. I just love having the beautiful shiny sentiments there with the embossing. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to work on our mini haunted moon. So I'm putting a piece of cardstock in my stamp wheel, and I'm drawing around those 4 little circles. Those will help me line up the stencil as I move through. Now I'm using lemonade stand with a small blending tool, and it already looks beautiful, but I'm going to go ahead and do the second part of the stencil. So I'll line up the 4 little squares, push down in my stamp wheel, and add Tangerine Dream on top of that. I'll clean that off and align for the bottom part of the stencil and use Cherry Sweet. And I love how this moon came out. I still am so happy with it. So I'll trim that down and get that cut out so that we are ready to go with that piece. So now we have our basic components of our card. I want to do the background now. So I have a piece of 5 3/4 by 4.5 dark gray cardstock in my stamp wheel. I'm putting the stencil over and I'm putting a line around with satin masking tape around the area where I want to use the paper glitz black rainbow. So I'll get that all covered up where I don't want it to go. Then I'm going to come in with my palette knife, give it a nice good stir, and mix it all up so I have those beautiful shiny bits in there. And I'm going to start laying that over the Bat Crazy stencil. And I'm being careful not to lift up the stencil or scrape too hard because I don't want to get anything under the bat wings. What's great about this is the stamp wheel platform holds everything in place. The stamp wheel sticky mat holds my cardstock in place, and I didn't have to worry about getting any on my stamp wheel because I had the satin masking. And the great thing is as I just showed you, you can pick it up and move the stamp wheel out of the way. So you can set it to the side to dry perfectly without getting your fingers in it. Or in my case, having a cat sit on it. So now we'll go ahead and I'll use some more satin masking tape to tape down the dies for my sentiment and my cute little mummy. And I'll get those so they're all die cut out for us. So we've got all of our pieces and it's now time to assemble our project. So I'm going to put some ultra sticky tape on the back, but first I want to trim this down so that it is down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 because remember I made it a little bit bigger. I like to do that in case I have a little section where I'm not happy with it or something. I bump it with my finger, something like that. So I have ultra sticky tape on the back and I'm going to adhere my panel onto my card base. And it's opening the right way, which is great. We'll go ahead and we'll get some instant dimension foam tape put on the back of our mummy and on the back of our sentiment. That is the great thing about using the stamp wheel though for your pastes and such, is that you don't have to worry about hitting it with your finger until it's dry. You can just set it up out of the way and it's ready to go. I did use ultra sticky tape on the back of my moon because it's on that textured background. Put my other pieces in place and we have our finished project. I hope you had as much fun watching as I had creating this. Enjoy the rest of the hop. Happy crafting!